Hello, I'm Carol Parsons, a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I've made another mini album with a story for my great niece Isabella, who we call Izzy. This is a sequel to the last one I made with Stamperia's uh, something library, vintage library. And that story had a dragon in it. This story is continuing because at the end of that book you meet an elf. And this book is about elves and fairies. So here's the paper. This little door knocker I found on Etsy. I used a ribbon. I usually don't like ribbons, but I couldn't work out what I wanted to do with the cover and have enough room for a flap to close with magnets. So I used a ribbon. If it proves to be too fussy for my niece, she can cut it off. And it starts out with a little book. It has kind of a message. It's like a little prologue to the book and some vintage maps in there. And here's the first page. It's a sliding door. Slide the other way and open up the other side. Now this story, she is the kind of one of the main characters, protagonist. Her and another elf named Steve. That's another story. All the elves in my story have elfish sounding names, Carowin, Kieran, Aragorn. I got on the internet and I looked at Dungeon and Dragon websites for names for elves. So I'm telling my brother about this, who's Izzy's grandpa. And he says, well, is there an elf named Steve? And I said, no, but I have a blonde elf. He says, well, there you go. So I renamed that elf Steve, and he is now in the story. So there's another story text page. And then, I designed these to stay out a little so they're easier to find, these pull-out pages. This page has a little flap right here in the castle drawbridge. Just something cute. It doesn't really say anything. And then you open it up this way. It's a little more story text. And this belly band is magnetic and it introduces you to the characters. So we've got Kieran. He's a healer of the elves. Tamron is a pathfinder. So is Steve. They both mark the trails and create trails through Krudonia, which is the kingdom that this story happens in. Krudonia is an extension of Izzy's last name. So Asaradel is a warrior. King Aragorn. Those images came from Etsy too. Queen Carowin. Caxel. Prince Jorelf and his unicorn, Dranville. Oh, this is a character too. This is the Great Stag. He has magical powers. And there's Steve. Princess Tenia and her unicorn, Shalimar. And then this pulls out and there's story text on the back. I just love the maps in this paper too. So much fun. I love fantasies. Always have. Still around the corner there may wait a new road or a secret gate. I love these little signs that Stamperia puts in. Oh, the cakes. This is a cool part of the story. Tamron, on her rounds in the morning, finds evidence of what she believes to be dwarves in a cave on the elves' lands. And dwarves in this story are nasty, bad people, kind of like in Lord of the Rings. So on her way to see the king and queen and report to them what she found, she stops by and talks to the fairies with Steve. He is the other Pathfinder. She works in the northern woods and he in the southern. And when they go visit the fairies enchant them, making them very small so that they can fit into the fairy houses. Once they get inside, of course, they're always treated to an elaborate tea. These are the cakes that the fairies made. And this one, in the story, they're talking about the types of cakes that these are. You know, you got chocolate and red velvet and strawberry. And this one in the story, Steve says, "Is that what I think it is?" And one of the fairies said, "Yes, that's graham cracker cake, your favorite." Well, in real life, graham cracker cake is one of my family's favorites, and my brother adores it. So that's why that had to be in there. And this page has a sheet of vellum over it because in the story, the elves and the fairies both use a magical mist to enchant the area in which they live so that mortals and potential bad people can't see them. They're, hidden. So that's the deal with that. And there's a little part of that story. Here's another pullout with some more. And you're going to see something about this in a minute, so I have to stop and tell you about this. While they are in the fairies' houses, the fairies are telling them what they've been up to, and they are making stained glass windows for their houses. But they made 2 extra windows to give to Steve and this elf. I've forgotten her name at the moment. It'll come back to me. Anyway, Tamron, there we go. Once they are back to their normal size, the windows will stay the same size, so they will be just the right size to wear as a pendant. So that goes in the story, and you're going to see a little more about that in a second. Oh, and also the fairies sprinkle fairy dust on them to get them to be smaller to come into the house. So that plays a part in a minute too. Enter the realm of the fairies. So when you open this page, I need to stand up to make sure you can see. Nope, good thing I did. Look inside the houses to see who lives there. The fairies have left the lights on for you. So this is the home of Tatiana, Queen of the Fairies, and her daughter Kira. This is Verania and her daughter Aurora. This is the Great Stag. He has magical powers and his name is Soren. This home is inhabited by Tyranny and her daughter Arwen. And this last one is the home of Parisa and her daughter Marin. Okay, and then, there we go. Then we have this page. I turn it up. There's some story text up here. Once the elves' army is alerted, the king and queen, everyone goes to the cave to try to catch the dwarves in the act, and the dwarves have just left, but they find this little dwarf who is really a gentle, good guy. He likes to study science. He wants to study under a wizard, and the elves keep telling him he's crazy. He's supposed to be a tough fighter, manly man, haha, and do mining stuff, and he doesn't want to. So he's kind of a good guy, dwarf. Sorry about that. All right, and I made a mistake on this. I wanted these two to be in here, mirror images. I got this idea from a mini album making friend online who did a page like this, and I messed up. But oh well. Stuff happens, right? This is the leader of the dwarves, the head bad guy, who, yes, the queen uses her magic, the queen of the elves, and she takes care of him. She kicks him out of the cave, seals the cave up, and even their tough magic dwarf tools can't break down the enchanted ceiling of the cave. So he decides he has respect for her and the other elves, and they'll leave them alone. This is a picture of the dwarves in the cave, and the reason they were in there is because they wanted to mine some of the ore in there to make their fighting weapons. And of course the elves tell them, no, the strongest steel is elfin steel, only when it's made by elven hands, and this is on our land and you need to leave. So they made him leave. But no fighting, no blood, no gore, which is what I hated about Lord of the Rings. When I read it, in my mind, I made all the bad guys look not so creepy, The movie? Whoa. All right, and here is another text page, pictures of Tamrin. The owls are in this book as well, in this story. And then the very last page opens up. This is the initial for Isabella's last name, and I did my best to draw it and color it with Prismacolors. I don't love to draw. I can, but I don't love it. So I don't know. I just think these are fun, so I included them. Izzy can do whatever she likes with those. And then the piece de resistance. This paper, I don't know if you can see it here, but a couple of patterns. Oh, here too. This paper has Elfish alphabet writing in it. So I got online. I seem to remember J.R. Tolkien something about an elfin alphabet, and I found it. But then I also found another one that, I don't know, I guess Dungeon and Dragon players put together. So I copied the elfin alphabet, thinking as Isabella gets older, she and her friends can use this as a code and send secret messages back and forth to each other. And so I wrote her a note. And there's still more because Aunt Carol can't stop there. I had leftover pieces of all of this wonderful paper, so I decorated the top of this box, and I told her, in this treasure box you will find a fairy doll just for you. You can name it too. A fairy crown to wear in your pretty hair, a necklace just like the fairies made the elves. Its beauty surely comes from the fairy realm. Some fairy dust, use only when you must, a bottle of amethyst from the cave for you to display, and another copy of the elfish alphabet to share with a friend, so you can write secret messages to no end. And I made fairy dolls. So, of course, you have to make two because you can't just play with fairies by yourself. So I make two fairy dolls. Here is a necklace with some fairy dust in it. But after teaching for 30 years, Aunt Carol got wise. Sorry, Izzy, but I super glued this on there so you won't get glitter all over the place and drive your mom nuts. And these are real amethysts, by the way. I think we got them in the Virgin Islands. I'm pretty sure that's where they came from. But they're really pretty. And that's in the story, so I thought that would be kind of cool too. And then, oops, now I can't get them back in there. I'll fix that in a minute. And here's the little fairy crown. It ties in the back. And here's the necklace like Steve and tamarind get inside the book. This happens to be an antique, what do you call them? Eye doctors. Boy, you ever had one of those days? Eye doctors used to use these, and the lenses are, of course, different power, so they could test your vision. Now everything's computerized, but you can still buy these, so I adhered another one of those on there. So that's the little treasure box with all her goodies. And I think I'll put this back in here. So I'll send these to her. Now my other niece, who will get a book, it's just a story about little fairies. She's going to have a little box too, and some of the same things in there. These are the fairy dolls I made for her. So I haven't written the book yet. I just got the paper. So I had a horrible time with this particular flower, trying to get it to lay down. But so there's those two dolls. And that's it for a while. I've got to go back to stamping and do some things for a few weeks with that. So stay tuned, and I'll come on and show you some stamping related things later. Bye.